You are not lazy. You are waking up inside a life your soul no longer agrees to. That is why nothing pulls you the way it used to. You sit in front of the same work, the same goals, the same messages, the same people. Outwardly, your life may look almost unchanged, but inwardly, something has gone silent. The force is weaker. The hunger is weaker. The old obedience is gone. And this is what frightens you. You cannot live your life as you used to anymore. So you call it lost motivation, burnout, confusion, depression, laziness. You try to name it in a way that makes it easier to fix. But what is happening to you may be far more serious than that. You may be in a spiritual crisis. Not a beautiful one, not a dramatic one, not the kind people like to romanticize. A real one. The kind that strips the energy out of what once ruled you. The kind that makes the old rewards feel dead in your hands. The kind that forces you to see that the life you were living may have been held together by fear, performance, and self-betrayal. That is why your motivation died after spiritual awakening. Not because you failed, because something in you has begun refusing the old arrangement. At first, this feels humiliating. You remember the version of yourself who could still push through. The version who could still chase, please, perform, achieve, endure. You remember how easily pressure could move you, how quickly guilt could move you, how strongly fear could move you. You could threaten yourself into action, shame yourself into discipline, exhaust yourself, and still call it purpose. But now those old methods do not work. You try to force yourself, and something in you turns cold. You try to inspire yourself, and nothing answers. You try to scare yourself back into movement, and the deeper part of you simply withdraws. This is why you feel so lost, because you still think the healthy version of you is the one who can return to normal, the one who can function on command, the one who can smile when needed, the one who can keep going without asking what any of it is costing you. But what if that version of you was built around unconscious submission? What if your old motivation was never clean? What if it came not from life, but from fear, wearing the mask of ambition, duty, kindness, love, or discipline? Then awakening would not feel like inspiration. It would feel like interruption. It would break the rhythm of the life you built. It would make the old rewards taste flat. It would expose the bargain you were living under. And once you see that bargain, even dimly, you cannot fully go back. That is the surface problem, and the hidden truth beneath it. On the surface, your motivation died after spiritual awakening. Underneath, your soul has begun refusing to keep financing a false life. You may resist this idea. Most people do, because part of you still wants the old engine back. You want your edge back, your clarity, your urgency, your old drive. You want to wake up and care about the same things with the same intensity. You want to become efficient again, certain again, impressive again. But what you miss is not only energy. You miss not knowing. You miss the old innocence that let you abandon yourself without feeling it so clearly. Now the cost is harder to hide. Now the smile feels false when it is false. Now the work feels dead when it is dead. Now the relationship feels draining when it is draining. Now the family role feels suffocating when it is suffocating. Awakening does not immediately hand you the right life. First, it destroys your tolerance for the wrong one. I know this because I did not come to these questions as a man speaking safely from a distance. I met this problem in myself. After my break with Freud, I entered a period of deep inner uncertainty. Outwardly, much of my life still remained intact. I was still a physician. I was still disciplined. I still had language, thought, position, and training. But inwardly, something far more powerful had begun to move. Dreams intensified. Images appeared with force. Strange inner scenes rose up that I could neither dismiss nor explain away. At times I feared I was standing close to madness. That matters, because I do not want to speak to you about awakening as if it were merely peaceful insight. For me, it was a rupture, a descent, a collapse of the old certainty that had once held me together. I could not simply go back to the former orientation. The intellect was not enough. Habit was not enough. Professional identity was not enough. Something in me demanded that I stop standing above my inner life and begin listening to it. So I did something difficult. I stopped treating the inner world as an inconvenience. I wrote down the visions. I observed the images. I entered into dialogue with what arose in me, instead of immediately suppressing it. What people later came to connect with the Red Book did not come from comfort. It came from crisis. It came from a period when I could no longer live inwardly as I had before. That is why I understand your condition. You are not simply unmotivated. You may be standing in the same painful interval. The old structure is failing, and the new one has not yet formed. That interval is brutal, because you still have responsibilities. You still have bills. You still have emails. You still have a body that must get out of bed and move through the world. But inside, the contract is breaking apart. Part of you says, get back on track. Another part says, I cannot. Do not be too quick to call that second voice weakness. Sometimes it is the first honest voice you have heard in years. You see this in ordinary life everywhere. You open your laptop in the morning and stare at the screen. You know what to do. You have done it 100 times. But now the body resists. Not because you suddenly became incapable, because something in you can no longer draw life from proving your worth through endless output. What once felt like ambition now feels like self-erasure. You call it procrastination. But perhaps a deeper truth is speaking through the resistance. I will not keep sacrificing myself to maintain this identity. Or you see it in love. You sit across from someone you once gave everything to. You used to over-explain, overweight, over-forgive, overgive. You called it patience. You called it devotion. You called it love. But now your body tells the truth before your mouth does. You feel tired before the conversation begins. You hear yourself say, "It's fine. and something in you recoils, because what you once called love may have been your desperate wish to be chosen. And once you see that, your motivation to keep performing devotion begins to die. You see it in family too. You walk into a familiar room, and within minutes you become smaller. Your voice changes. Your honesty shrinks. You slip back into the role that kept everyone comfortable. The easy one, the responsible one, the one who causes no trouble. Then you leave and feel exhausted in a way sleep does not fix. That is not random sensitivity. That is the cost of splitting yourself to preserve a pattern. And when awakening has begun, your motivation to keep playing that role starts to collapse. So listen carefully. Your problem is not only that you lost energy. Your problem is that your energy has stopped agreeing to a lie. That is why this is so painful. Because simple advice will not fix it. A new planner will not fix it. A harder morning routine will not fix it. Shaming yourself will not fix it. Even spiritual language will not fix it if you use it only to decorate the same old prison. This is one of the great dangers now. You begin speaking about healing while living exactly as before. You rename your fear. You call your avoidance intuition. You call your passivity peace. Or you call your self-destruction devotion. You learn new words, but your life remains divided. Then you wonder why nothing changes. Nothing changes because awakening is not meant to make your false life more comfortable. It is meant to make it unbearable. That is why this middle stage feels so bleak. You have not yet built a new relation to life, but you can no longer unconsciously inhabit the old one. The old road is dead. The new road has not fully appeared. You are between identities, between motives, between meanings, and because you are between, panic begins. You are tempted to rebuild the old self as quickly as possible. You tell yourself to stop being dramatic, to stop thinking so much, to stop feeling so much, to be grateful, to be disciplined, to be normal. But normal may have been the shape of the very life that was killing your spirit. And if you force yourself back into that shape too soon, you may regain outward function. You may become productive again, smooth again, admired again. But inwardly, resentment will deepen, numbness will deepen, anxiety will deepen. The truth you refused will go underground and wait. And whatever is forced underground does not disappear. It returns as symptom. It returns as strange fatigue. It returns as compulsive distraction. It returns as bitterness with no obvious cause. It returns as sudden anger toward the people standing where you keep abandoning yourself. So what must change? First, you must stop insulting your condition. Do not call every loss of false drive laziness. Do not assume that because the old fear no longer moves you so efficiently, you are broken. Something deeper may be happening. The center of your personality may be refusing an arrangement that the surface still wants to preserve. Second, you must become ruthless in your honesty about what your old motivation was made of. This is not pleasant work. You must ask what was really driving you. Was it love of the work or terror of being nothing? Was it devotion or fear of abandonment? Was it discipline or shame? Was it spiritual longing or the wish to feel pure, superior, untouchable, safe? Until you see what fed the old fire, you will keep begging for the return of something that was burning you alive. Third, you must accept that real motivation does not return like a dramatic rescue. It returns quietly. It returns when your life becomes less divided. It returns when your actions stop violating what you now know to be true. It returns when you say one honest sentence you have postponed for years. It returns when you refuse one degrading pattern. It returns when you leave one false obligation. It returns when you stop calling self-betrayal maturity. It returns when you stop offering your life to roles that require your inner death. This new motivation is slower, but it is cleaner. The old motivation was often fast because it was driven by fear. The new motivation is slower because it must pass through truth. And truth is heavy. Truth rearranges your life. Truth costs you things. Truth may ask you to disappoint people. Truth may ask you to release the identity that made you lovable in the eyes of others. Truth may ask you to grieve the version of yourself that helped you survive, but can no longer lead you. That is why spiritual awakening often feels like death before it feels like freedom. Something borrowed is being taken back. Something false is losing power. Something old in you is no longer fit to rule. And now we return again to the title, more deeply. Why did your motivation die after spiritual awakening? Because the self that was motivating you could not survive the light. The engine broke because it was built for a divided life. What stopped working was not your capacity for life. What stopped working was your capacity to keep moving against yourself without noticing. That is why this pain matters. It hurts, yes, but pain is not proof that something has gone wrong. Sometimes pain is the sound of false structure collapsing. So do not ask only how to get your motivation back. Ask who you were when you had it. Ask what bargain you were living by. Ask what you kept calling duty, love, success, discipline, or spirituality, when in truth, it was fear. Ask what in you has awakened strongly enough that it now refuses that bargain. Those are better questions, harder questions, more dangerous questions, because they do not let you remain innocent in your own suffering. They do not let you blame only the world. They force you to see where you cooperated with the life that drained you. And that seeing is painful, but it is also the beginning of dignity. Then one day, without drama, something shifts. Not a miracle, not a performance, not a motivational speech inside your own head. Something quieter. You speak more honestly in one conversation. You leave one obligation that has been poisoning you. You stop begging to be chosen where you are only being tolerated. You work for 1 hour without violating yourself, and the work feels different. You wake up one morning and feel the faintest movement towards something simple and true. This is how real motivation returns, not as panic, not as pressure, not as self-violence, It returns as the natural energy of a self that is no longer at war with itself. So remember this. When your motivation dies after spiritual awakening, do not rush to resurrect the old self. That self may have looked strong, but perhaps it was built around fear. That self may have looked admirable, but perhaps it was starving. That self may have known how to continue, but not how to tell the truth. Your task now is not to become efficient inside falseness again. Your task is to become honest enough that life can return on different terms. That is slower work, harder work, lonelier work, but it is real. And that, in the end, is what awakening asks of you. Not that you become special, not that you become endlessly calm, not that you float above ordinary life. It asks that you stop living in a way your soul can no longer respect. So hear the title one last time with its fullest meaning. Your motivation did not die because the awakening went wrong. Your motivation died because the awakening was real. And if it was real, then the way forward is not backward. The way forward is through grief, through truth, through the collapse of what once drove you, through the long, hard work of building a life that does not require so much inner killing just to keep going. Because the worst prison is not the one that hurts you. It is the one that still rewards you while your soul is dying inside it.